Bandito Bane, the well-rounded nerd, the Super Spider-Man fan, and the Warhammer noob, coming to you in 2024. And yeah, we made it. We survived 2023, but let's look back at 2023. I'm going to look at the best and the worst of 2023, and being the well-rounded nerd that I am, I'm going to look at what was the best and the worst in nerd culture. I am going to look at comic books, movies, anime, tabletop, video games. So let's dive in and see what was the best and the worst of 2023. Now, keep in mind, this is just my opinion. You can be okay to disagree with me. I'll welcome it. But this is just what I believe was the best and the worst of 2023. So let's dive into it with some of the best comic books, some of the worst comic books, some of the best video games, some of the worst video games, some of the best movies, some of the worst movies, some of the best video games, some of the worst video games, and the winner and the loser of the tabletop competition of this year. So, let's see what we have in store for 2023, and hopefully it'll bring us a better 2024. Okay, first we are going to look at the best comic books. And since being a Spider-Man fan, we're going to look at the best Spider-Man comic books for first. The first of the best Spider-Man comic books is Spider-Man India Volume 2 by Nikesh Shalok Shakula. And I do not speak Hindi, so hang me later. But I love this Spider-Man. It basically shows the how rough the culture is in India, specifically in India, in Mumbai, where people are basically where the caste system is very prevalent, and this is like his version of Spider-Man No More, where Peter or Patara, how he wants to quit being Spider-Man because the people have stopped believing in him after a group of thugs saying that they work for Spider-Man are basically messing up the neighborhood in his name. And this also introduces the version of of this also has a return of the Green Goblin, and also has a return also has the introduction of the lizard in this universe. So I am very glad that I actually got to read this series. I'm gonna be getting the trade paperback as soon as it comes out, because this was such a great book, such a great story. I mean, it did have a type of a wind up to get to the juicy bits, but when you read through that, it just gets better and better and better. So, yeah, I'm going to go. I'm giving this one like fourth whaps out of five. Okay, now the second one that is the best Spider-Man book is going to be Spine Tingling Spider-Man by Saladin Ahmed. Now, Saladin Ahmed has done Miss Marvel, and he's also done the new Daredevil, and I was kind of iffy about this version, this his interpretation of Spider-Man, but this interpretation of Spider-Man is very good, especially since it came out in Halloween. So it is it's got like this dystopian feel of what if Spider-Man never existed and Peter has no powers, and then with the other issues you see like callbacks to some of the best horror franchises, like Midnight Meat, some obscure horror franchises like Midnight Meat Train, or or Saw, or Your Next. And this I especially love these horror. Being a horror buff myself, I especially love these these little callbacks to certain horror characters, certain horror icons, and it's just a great story. I'm excited to see how it ends, and I cannot. I just wish that this can be like Spider-Man canon, but I don't. I think it's just an offshoot of what's going on. But anyways, that that is the best of Spider-Man of this year, and so let's go on to the best comic books of this year. All right, now the first comic book that I want to highlight as the best of 2023 is Conan the Barbarian by Jim Zub. Now, Conan the Barbarian has had a kind of tumultuous run in Marvel, and with with the writer calling attacking fans, but with Titan Comics and Heroic Signature, I think this is like a return to form of Conan of Conan, and this is just like this is just complete pulp madness, like you would see in what Robert E. Howard would write: sexy women, tra- giant brute men, swords and sandals. This is just incredible. These are based off the stories of Robert E. Howard himself, and I do love Robert E. Howard, and he was such a great writer. And seeing these stories come to life of Conan and him doing in him just being the best barbarian or Sumerian, not caring about whatever the F of politics. He could give two Fs about whatever some Puritan would think of, and this is just shows off how how broad and and a dynamic that Conan can be. He is a tactical tactician. He can outfight the best warriors. He can out sneak the best thieves. And this is just a guy who says he's nothing but a barbarian who was the son of a blacksmith, and he's just content with life. Just give him a good sword, a fair maiden in his arms, and a good fight, and he is content. And this is just captures everything that Conan does. So yeah, I would get I would I am excited to see where this series goes as long as it goes. Now, the second one that I want to highlight is Fire and Ice by Bill Willingham. Now, this is Fire and Ice, the original movie by Ralph Bakshi and Frank Frazetta, was not that well received, but still became a cult classic. And now we have this comic book, which expands the lore of Fire and Ice. And I do love seeing this world being expanded because the world is just so magical. I mean, it has it's this type of prehistoric yet very yet it also has this very magical fantasy way type of vibe going on, and I just love where this story is going and showing off more of the characters from from the the evil dark wizard to the to the dark wolf and the princess and the chief's son, and then it just keeps getting better and better. The art is just great. Now, the now this is a really great. This really is really great, and I am just glad I could see this comic book. Now the third one, the third and the fourth are both by Mark Millar. First one is Nemesis Reloaded, and this comic book, Jorge he brought Jorge Jimenez onto this, as an artist, and Jorge Jimenez is great, has great Batman work, and this just shows great Batman style art, since like Nemesis is the reverse Batman, and the whole concept of him being this superpower, this ultra vigilante who does doesn't give two F's. He just does it for the fun of it. He does it to create chaos. And he is the proto Joker. Like if you like put the Batman who laughs and the old school Batman, the like the Batman from Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns, and put them in a blender and splice them together, you get Nemesis. Because this guy just wants to create chaos and destroy everything, every societal structure there is, and just because he does it for a laugh. Now this Now the next one that Mark Millar brought to us is the big game, and this one was just as good, if not probably not better. And the big game is a massive crossover with all Mark Millar's properties into one. You got Kick Ass, you got Nemesis, you got Wanted, you got Nightclub, you got the Magic Academy, you got so many others. Le, there's this one where where there's superheroes that represent their countries. I think it's called uh, the Ambassadors. You got and you got them all working together. Like it's basically a good balance of good and evil. And here we have the Nemesis leading the Wanted and the Super Crooks. You have Kick Ass bringing together the Ambassadors, the Magic Order, the Nightclub, and trying to stop Nemesis. And it's such a great story. It brings me back to when he was doing uh, Marvel's Civil War, because it's heroes versus heroes, but also heroes versus villains. So it is just a great time. And no matter what, no matter what they say, Mark Millar is just such a class act, and he will always be the king of comics. And he is the current king of comics, and he will always know what's good for comics. And I don't want to get too much into this, but Mark Millar will always have a place for comic book writers, and they just need to get their collective heads out of their asses so that they could see the problems and maybe take some advice from someone who's been around the block. Okay, now since we looked at the best, let's look at the worst in comic books. And the worst Spider-Man series, or the worst Spider-Man arc, is Amazing Spider-Man 20 to 26, which is the Dead Language arc. Now, this entire arc was basically meant to answer the questions of who is Paul? Why did Peter and Mary Jane break up? Why is he a, why is he why is he being ousted by the Avengers and the Fantastic Four? Isn't he is he in the outs without May? Why is he only talking to Norman Osborn? And all the answers is just so freaking stupid and frustrating. I mean, I started my channel because of this entire arc, and the fact that they want us to say to basically feel sorry for Paul, a guy who caused a planet-wide genocide and has done nothing, like comparing him to Spider-Man. I mean, that is one of the biggest jokes I've ever seen in a comic book, and it's not even funny. The whole thing is just like it's just it's just like I don't know, the thing that where people fall in love with their captors or something like that. Uh, great, great, let me, uh, this is, it's just Stockholm Syndrome. Yeah, that's it, Stockholm Syndrome. And this is the thing that Mary Jane was in the god was in the other world was in the other world with the one man alive, with the only man on Earth. It's just that it's like that thing that I won't go out with you even if you're the last man on Earth. He was literally the last man on Earth, and that's just one of the stupidest things. And one thing is that the Fantastic Four didn't believe him, the Avengers didn't believe him, nobody would help him, so he went to Norman, and he tried. That was the only thing that he did. So he sacrificed everything for the woman he loved, and guess what? Oh, she thought he gave up on her. He basically ruined his life is completely ruined and everything. I mean, Zeb Wells, Nick Lowe, and Dan Slott think that Spider-Man is the best when he's miserable. But I mean, come on. At this point, it looks like at this the entire series is gonna end with him staring at a noose. And this whole thing was just like, especially issue 25 was especially just sounds like a character assassination to Mary Jane. And yeah, in and they're and throughout this whole thing they're trying to make sure to look like, oh, Paul is the better man. The guy wanted to leave those kids who he probably made orphans into who he probably made orphans behind in a post-apocalyptic Earth to survive for themselves. Oh yeah, that's great father material. So yeah, the thing is that this entire comic book didn't make sense. I mean, the the death of Miss Marvel at the end was just there for shock value and resurrect her as a mutant to tie into the MCU. The entire the thing with and Miss Marvel was never even in this run of Amazing Spider-Man. She was only in there for 10 pages at least. And this whole thing about why Peter and Mary Jane broke up, and the whole thing about why that Paul is the better choice. I mean, the only thing that I like that I was okay with was the action on issue 26, and seeing those kids disappear because they were basically magical constructs created by the emissary. And yeah, oh yeah, let's not forget Paul is the son of the emissary. He's not even from the 616 universe. He was from his original world, and he was left there as punishment. As punishment. And yeah, guess what? Guess what? He stole Mary Jane from Peter, and that's why you got people who universally loathe Paul. And this is what this brings up, like these two issues from or these two articles from comic book resources, how Spider-Man has taken two steps one Spider-Man has taken a step forward, yet three steps back, and how that Spider-Man needs to return to the status quo. Now the latter brought up that they have not brought up enough of the support characters because Peter is basically alone. There's no J. Jonah Jameson, there's no Mary Jane, or there's barely even Mary Jane, no Aunt May, no Jim Robinson, no Robbie, not his best friend, who's his son, who's Robbie's son. Nobody. The only person that got a spotlight was Paul, and everybody hates Paul. And then you got people saying how Spider-Man should go back to his roots, fighting city streets instead of these kind of things. And hopefully, like by this year, we'll see a lot. We'll see this come in. I mean, it can't be. It just can't. The next writer just can't be worse than what Zeb Wells did. I mean, this This mess is almost irreparable, and hopefully, I mean, as much as flack that um, as the guys who did John Byrne and Chip, no, not Chip Zdarsky. Uh, as much flack that John Byrne and Howard Mackey and Jerry Conway all got for with their run of Amazing Spider-Man, which had the Clone Saga and all these other missteps. I mean, they did walk back their mistakes, even though it did take a while for them to do that. I mean, Dan Slott, even with all his posturing of trying to make trying to trying to make he did write some good stories, even though that some of the stories he did try to make Peter Batman or him or Iron Man. I mean, they're still good stories, but it is very hard to find a good story within Zeb Wells's run, and it's just so frustrating. Hopefully, by the end of this run, we'll get a better writer and better a better team, but I highly doubt it. I mean, the Beyond was okay, but this was Zeb Wells and other writers, but I think those other writers kept him on course and not go too far off with what he was doing. But now Zeb Wells is on his own, and he is completely ruining this franchise. And this is Marvel's flagship title. I mean, the X Men aren't doing that good, but hopefully that'll change with the fall of X. And I just can bring. I just took a break from Spider Man. That series that arc made me take a break. It went too far with my mental health, and I took an entire break from Spider Man. I didn't come back until December when the gang wars started, and hopefully, with this and the arc after it, hopefully, we'll get better for Peter. I want another writer, hopefully, like Chip Zdarsky, J. Michael Straczynski, or hell, I'll even take Steve Orlando. And And also, I am so excited for Ultimate Spider-Man, the return of Ultimate Spider-Man, and other and got stories of the Green Goblin. But this whole thing with Amazing Spider-Man, it's just such a bad leaves such a bad taste in my mouth. And I hope doesn't go. This just ends with Zeb Wells. So, anyways, that was the worst Spider-Man comic books of 2023. Okay, and now let's go to the worst comic books of 2024, 2023. And this really gets me the wrong way because 2023 was a bad year for the big two. I mean, you had some great comic books coming in, but the best comic books I've read were either from the indies or from Kickstarter and Patreon, and these were and they were really good, and these were the people that they're trying to keep out of the main two because apparently they're on the wrong side of history. But let's start with the first comic. This is DC's Alan Scott Green Lantern by Kane Torme. And this is not a superhero comic book. It's not a superhero comic book at all. It's supposed to show off Al- the backstory of Alan Scott, Green Lantern, but this goes is just like a soapbox that modern writers do, trying to say, "Oh, this was bad. This was bad," because shows that it basically shows the whole thing about Alan Scott being a gay man in the 30s, and not that that's a bad thing, but doing it on a superhero comic book is basically a bad thing because people don't want to read about superhero comic people don't want to read about what happened to the gay community in the 1930s because they want to forget about crappy stuff that happens that's happening in the world. And one of the things that causes them to get this form of escapism is superhero comic books. And Kane Tormey, it basically begged people to buy his comic book in a cringe-worthy video in which he said he wants to stick it to Comicsgate. But I mean, the people at Comicsgate, like the Rippaverse, Eric July, ESG, your boy Zach, they're not worried. Bill, Billy Tucci, they're not worried about getting about about mainstream comic books anymore. They're worried about their own content. You guys told them to make, if you don't like our comic books, make your own. So you got people like Rini who did Fiendish after she left Marvel, and and you have my friend like like Jinja Ninja who helped create a comic book that was very that what comic book fans would like. And like it's like it's not that this type of comic book content is not, people do not want this type of comic book content, but it's a very small market that wants this kind of comic book content. And I think that maybe you should not try and force your ideals on other people, and and write a superhero comic book first, and then put like what the ideals you want to have in into the comic book in the background, kind of like what Stan Lee did. But this, you see, I see this as a growing trend, and you can see it with my next comic book. The next comic book, which was I say is the worst, is X-Men Blue Origins #1 by Spurrier. And this one basically retcons the birth or the parents of Nightcrawler, one of my favorite X-Men, but it makes it seem like his his entire what his father was actually Mystique and a- not Azrael or Azazel, as who was created by Chuck Austin. And I was not a fan about Kurt being the son of a demon, like being literally being the son of a demon. And I was never really a fan of Chuck Austin's run because he basically put together mutants were basically closer to angels and demons. And but this is even worse, or not worse, but it's gaslighting to basically like trans community and to the trans community. And I think Sai is just trying to get brownie points, seeing how inclusive he is. But the thing is that Chris Claremont's and the thing is that his excuse was that Chris Claremont originally wanted Mystique to be the father, but that's not true. Actually, the story is that when Chris Claremont created Nightcrawler, he wanted Nightmare to be the father of Nightcrawler, and but Nightmare was being used by the Doctor Strange team, and they didn't want him to use their character for the X-Men. So he decided to make make Mystique the father since she's a shapeshifter, but then they're like, no, no, we already established that Mystique is a woman. She'll even though she changes into man, she's still a woman. So why don't we make her the mother? So they made her the mother, and they made his father Count, and Mystique actually abandoned him because she was basically using the Count to get riches. And we see this in the X-Men animated series, and even in the X-Men the other X-Men's X-Men cartoon and WB, which when they were teenagers. But yeah, I did not like this. I mean, it made it sound. I mean, so Mystique is the father, Destiny's the mother, and she eventually gives birth to Nightcrawler like a linebacker, and they end up abandoning him, which makes it. Even though they say that they love him and everything, they end up abandoning him, and it makes her sound even worse because you cannot sympathize with this character, and you're supposed to sympathize with these characters. And I feel like this is wrong. This is the main thing that happened with the Krakoa era. You're supposed to be sympathizing and getting to and rooting for these characters who are supposed to be the heroes, but they've been acting like villains, like X-Men Green. You got White Queen mind controlling people to not hate people, basically against their will. And you have so many things that I'm glad that the Krakoa era is ending. And but I don't know. Um, we're going to have a new X-Men staff after Jordan, because Jordan White's no longer going to be the editor, and the head writer is going to be Gail Simone, who did Red Sonja. But I don't know about that, because she did do Maneater, which was basically a joke about how men cannot be rape victims unless they're attacked by a monster. And this this really get this I don't know. I lost all hope with X-Men after when the Krakoa era started. It started off really good with Jonathan Hickman, but then they basically forced Jonathan Hickman out, and and now that he's back, he went to Substack, and but now he's back. He's doing Ultimate Spider-Man, which I am enjoying so far. But this is just another not another notch in the downfall of Marvel as a comic book medium. Okay, so the next comic book that I'm going to highlight as the worst of 2023 is Wonder Woman by Tom King, and this is another one of the dawn of DC, and this is just so bad. I mean, it's political standing in a it's political standing just with Wonder Woman as a cover with a cover art. I mean, this is a political cartoon with only DC characters as those as the stand-ins, and this is like Tom King being a character, assassinating a character, like he did with Batman, like he did with Mr. Terrific, Guy Gardner. I mean, he even got fired from Batman because of his writing style. But I guess DC hasn't learned from it. And yes, this guy was with the CIA, but he's not a very good comic book writer. I'm sorry. He is very blatant in his political standings in his comic book. In the comic books he writes, he gets beloved characters and he deconstructs them like he's Alan Moore, and he is. And speaking of, he likes to he likes to destroy beloved characters. Yes, one the entire premise is one Amazon ends up killing a bar full of men and only leaving the woman alive, and the Senate decides to throw all Amazons out of the United States. And this whole thing this whole thing you have like women being shot in front of their children and everything, and it's just like a political mess that we don't want to see in comic books, especially superhero comic books. I mean, you could have it in another comic book, but not superhero comic books. And this whole thing is just like very 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 mind-boggling of how he keeps getting a job when his sales of Wonder Woman are down. I mean, Wonder Woman probably dropped down to number 50 in the comic book sales, but but that's neither here nor there. I mean, I guess DC likes burning their money with subpar writers, and great artists, and I feel terrible for the artists because they're not doing they're working their asses off to tell a story, but the story is just terrible. But then, but that's it. All I have to say about this one. And but the last comic book I want to talk about is the last comic book I want to talk about is Punisher: King of Killers by Jason Aaron, and this is just a total mess of a comic book. It's basically trying to retell the story of the Punisher. Like, this whole thing started because of June 6th, when a bunch of idiots tried to raided the Capitol building to overturn the election, and the whole thing January 6th, when a bunch of idiots tried to raid the Capitol building to overturn the election, and the whole thing, and just because one guy had a Punisher symbol on his tactical vest, people all automatically say, "Oh, the Punisher is evil now." And the just because military and police and law enforcement have been using the Punisher logo as basically a symbol for their unit or their committee or something like that, and far left and far right groups are using it. And I mean, if you ask them who Frank Castle is, they probably don't know who he is. And the thing is that the Punisher logo is a cool symbol. But that one thing is that they completely changed the logo. Punisher doesn't use guns anymore. He has superpowers now, and he basically is this is this saint of killers type persona now, and he's basically pure evil. And the whole thing is that he was that they changed that Jason Aaron changed his history, being a deadbeat dad and a neglectful husband, and the whole thing that changed his life had when his family were killed in Central Park is his wife wanted a divorce on that day. But I mean that it's just trying to change the story of an entire character. It just a slap in the face with the creator, and it just makes people hate this character even more, hate the creators even more, because they feel like they're doing this for the right side of history. But they replaced Frank with this other character who is basically a shield agent, and who is basically the shield agent, and is the new Punisher. And they think that a lot of people, and I call him Frank Light because he's basically Frank Castle with blonde hair, and he. I mean, you think you just look at the entire backstory and the things that he is. He was a Shield agent. Frank was a Shield agent in Punisher Kills the Marvel Universe. He was a his his family died in a car bomb. The Punisher in the Dolph Lundgren Punisher movie, his family died in a car bomb. His his skull glows and he has futuristic weapons. That's the same thing in Punisher 2099. I mean, this whole thing is it's just it's just a copy and paste version of the Punisher, just so they can try and make and say, oh, we're this is a different character now. But no, it's still Frank Castle, just with a different skin tone, and these people are not fooling anyone. But anyways, those were the worst comic books of 2023. Okay, now we go on to the best TV shows of 2023. Now, I didn't watch a lot of TV. I mainly watched anime, but there were three TV shows that stood out to me the most. The first one I want to highlight is the One Piece adaptation. Now, I was a little iffy that since it was done by by the same production company that did that abysmal Cowboy Bebop adaptation, which was canceled after 1 month of showing, and this actually what blew my mind. They had the creator, they had the voice actors who came back to do the Japanese dub. Everyone, and even everyone who was working on the project, were fans of One Piece. They didn't come in to do their own version of One Piece. They wanted to do the creator's version of One Piece, to show what the creator did and show it in not just an anime form but in a live action form. And this kind of respect for certain properties is kind of lost now, especially with like certain creators wanting to do their own version of what it of the of the properties. And I'll bring that up with the worst of 2023. And one of the and that this actually brought a lot of things, like the actor who played Luffy was actually very charismatic, very like the character in the both the manga and the anime. And he was even he was even honored by the creator of the manga and the creator and the voice actress who does Luffy in the Japanese version by putting a straw hat on his head, because they say that he deserved to be Luffy. Now I'm so looking forward to season two because we'll see characters like Smoker, Chopper, and even like who even some character, even when they're going to go like what was her name, the chick from Halloween, Jamie Lee Curtis, that's it. Jamie Lee Curtis, she wants to go into One Piece because she is a fan and she watches it with her granddaughter. And hopefully that this will the like going into this, we'll probably see like them going to the island from where Gold Rogers was executed, but he was originally from. We'll see Zoro get a new sword. We'll learn more about Luffy's family, and we'll probably see Chopper there as well. So that and so that's one and another one. The next one I want to highlight is Twisted Metal. Now, Twisted Metal, I was a little iffy, especially some of the trailers showing it having the same kind of Marvel humor that today that like we that today's current writers are so often made of using, but it was just great. Like seeing car combat in this way, especially in season 10, in episode 10, where it showed a full on vehicle combat, and it also introduces the concept of a Twisted Metal tournament, which is coming out, which will be part of the of the main story. Hopefully, in season two, hopefully Peacock will get it give it a season two. I mean, I did love Samoa Joe and Will Arnett portraying Sweet Tooth, and then you had Anthony Mackie who played John Doe, and I did like the fact that he has a connection to Dollface, who, spoiler alert, is his sister. And I also like how they have yet to introduce, that shows teasers that they're going to introduce characters like Mr. Graham, Axel, and other ones that were basically fan favorites in Twisted Metal, and I would love to see how they are made into this new series in real life. But that then, but that's hopefully we'll get a season two after the strike's been over now, and we'll get more from that. Now the last the last one I want to highlight is The Last of Us. Now, The Last of Us is a very good series. It highlights it actually shows the best of the game. It doesn't follow the game, but it follows it closely verbatim, and it's such a strong story showing it. And I love the Last of Us Part One. I've seen playthroughs. I've played a little bit myself, but the one the one thing I liked is the father and daughter dynamic that Joel and Ellie have, and it basically shows type of dynamic that this type of dynamic and survival into this story, and I cannot bring myself enough that it is just such a great show. And that well hopefully the next season won't be as bad, because yeah, we know Joel is gonna die by Macho Man Abby Savage, and we're supposed to we're supposed to be rooting for this psychopath, but I wouldn't see myself liking this, because they totally screwed up with the story, and Neil Druckmann is such a troll, coming out and de- bad mouthing fans, saying that we're all sexist, but it's just it's just not it just doesn't do good to basically make fun of your customers, dude. Okay, and now, so those were the best of 2023. Check those shows out if you haven't. Now we go on to the worst of 2023. Now, the worst television shows, kind of like the worst comics, is Marvel. Marvel's Secret Invasion had to be one of the worst piles of crap I have ever seen. I only watched the first episode, and then I saw the rest through watch parties. And let me tell you, this whole thing of doing a bait and switch putting Nick Fury in the sidelines and focusing on this strong strong independent whammon, or Mary Sue type character is just getting old. You just trying to get the characters get by showing off the nostalgia bait and doing this so that you can get the views, but then it's going to rub people off the wrong way. And plus, the Secret Invasion has always been one of my least favorite comic book arcs. Well, it did bring back Bobby Morris Mockingbird, but it just they completely ruined it after having Bobby divorce Clint and be like I don't need no man and everything. But this had to be one of the things that I liked that I did not like about this is that everyone that Nick Fury was just a side character, and it's just it's things like that shows that how the MC how the MCU is becoming the MCU, and you try to do this with the fans and they aren't going to come back. You're you're alienating the male audience, and you're alienating the female audience that were originally interested into these movies and shows, and then not bring them then it, then they leave because you're not doing this. You're not doing the same thing that it, that it has for that brought them in there. But that the show was just a mess. The visual arts, the scripts, the whole kabang, kit and caboodle. It was just a mess. Okay, and the second show that I want to say was the worst was Castlevania Nocturne. Now, I was a big fan of the first Castlevania series, and I didn't. I thought that the third was okay, and the fourth was just a mess because of forced diversity in it. But the whole thing about this was that you sidelined the main character. I know I wasn't bad that they race swapped that they race swapped Marie and made her a former Caribbean slave who knows how to do voodoo magic, and it's but the whole series was just about her, and it didn't make it you didn't have it was only about her. You just and I get it. Slavery was a bad thing, but this you could have just focused one episode and that would have been fine. But when you have her doing all the things that that Richter is supposed to do as the descendants of the Belmonts, and you have him being sidelined and crying like a little bitch, it's just takes away so many things like the Castlevania fans. And this I really want to like this series because Castlevania was is a great video game series. I've played it since the OG back in NES, and especially this series, you have Castlevania X Rondo of Blood and Castlevania Symphony of the Night were two of the most popular Castlevania games, and this is supposedly takes the same place during the same time as these video games, and yet you're screwing the pooch in in the first season. This is not this is just bad storytelling and trying to put uh, a message in front of a series that doesn't need to have a message. It's about slaying vampires, and it's if this was how new Blade movie was originally written, I'm glad that they're doing rewrites because this is just garbage. And the last series TV show I want to bring up as the worst of 2023 is The Witcher season 3. It This show became such a mess. So so awful. I mean, you have you have Geralt being pushed to the side to make original stories for Yennefer and Ciri, which were never in the books, and having so little regard for the books and the video games that the writers even openly make fun of people who like the video games and the books, thinking that they could do a better job. This is just people showing such disrespect to the original IP that I wonder why they get the job. And with someone who's a fan like Henry Cavill, I'm glad he left because he does not get this respect he deserves in this series. Then he does not get the respect that he should have. While because of his not vast knowledge of this series, it's just such a waste. And rumors are that Netflix might even cancel it before after it was okayed for 7 seasons because Henry said that he would stay on for all 7 seasons, but with the way that they're handling the IP, the entire story, it's just so heartbreaking, and I cannot I cannot in good faith recommend anybody to watch this series, especially with what they did to this with what they did to Andrei Sarlovsky's work. I mean, it's just such a shame. And I am a big fan of the Witcher books, and they wanted to do like a full blown lesbian love scene with Ciri and her lover. That's why Henry Cavill left, and they're if they do make it, no, they're gonna lose more people because this love scene was never in the books. It was more like a fade to black, and nobody and no almost nobody is going to watch it if they stray too far from the source material because people will read it, and especially now that Henry Cavill's gone, nobody is going to want to watch this series. I'm glad that Henry Cavill left. I'll say it again, and he's working on something better with Games Workshop and his own series, Vertigo, in which he's doing a new Warhammer series, and I cannot wait to see where if this bears fruit. But those were the worst TV shows of 2023. Okay, so now we move on to the best movies of 2023. The first movie I want to highlight is the Super Mario Brothers movie. Now, this came out of nowhere. It was just so unexpected that this movie would just be so good. It had one of the best one of the best like scores that you could have for a video game movie, especially since they're just Mario Brothers themes that were just put in orchestra form. You have an all-star cast like Charlie Day as Luigi. You had Chris Pine as Mario, Jack Black as Bowser, Seth Green as Donkey Kong. You even have the original voice of Mario to play their father in Brooklyn, and it takes like elements from both like the Super Mario TV show, if anybody remembers that they're both from that the brothers are from Brooklyn, and then they end up in the Mushroom Kingdom. And with the success that this movie came out got, and it just shows that video game movies are probably gonna be the next big thing, especially with the way Marvel is handling their properties. But let's not move that into that because right now the let's just enjoy the renaissance of this thing. I mean, you had one of the worst movies with the Super Mario Brothers movie back in the '90s with John Leguizamo and Bob Hopkins, and now you have one of the best movies that it made, and you of course there's going to be a sequel. They already announced that it's going to be a sequel, and I think Illumination basically brought their game to bring the video game to life. You had so many callbacks from Mario Kart and Luigi's Mansion and even Donkey Smash Brothers and even the old Donkey Kong game. They even have an arcade with the original name Jumpman. So that I can't wait to see what Illumination will do with this new IP that they were able to get. And I think they're going to start veering away from this Despicable Me IP. And so that's the first movie I want to highlight. The next movie I want to highlight is Godzilla Minus Zero. Now, this was such a good movie. I mean, you see Godzilla as this one giant colossal reptile, and it is just so good to see how the destruction he creates, and this whole time it's just made so believable. And this wasn't even a super expensive flick. I think it was only like $12 million, and it more than double made its money back. Now, synopsis takes place after the fallout of World War II. The first time it was the first time we see Godzilla is when he's at when a kamikaze pilot gets second thoughts and decides to say that his plane is broken, so he lands in an airfield, and they are attacked in an airfield in a remote island, and they are attacked by a giant reptile, and he tries to get in there, but he is he doesn't have a he isn't able to get there in time, and a lot of everybody dies except for him and some other guy, and when he gets back to home, he learns that his parents died in one of the American bombings in Tokyo, and he meets a woman who's trying to steal food for a baby that was left alone after her parents died from the bombing. And basically, these three people were brought together through chances of war, and it is such a character. It's such an incredible story with character moments, and this is something we do not see in a lot of movies these days now. I mean, you have a World War II veteran who's suffering from survivor's guilt. You have a woman who's trying to do her best, trying to trying to be with a family that she was given by happenstance, and a little girl who only knows what to do, who only knows these two people as her parents. And toss into that, you have a big giant lizard that is able to regenerate from a lot of things, everything that they pull at it. They even have an excuse why the U.S. and the USSR could not interfere with Godzilla when he started attacking mainland China. And that was because this was like at the beginning of the Cold War, and if the U.S. or China or the USSR got involved, they would both see that as an act of war, and then they would basically see that as them starting to fight each other to escalate the Cold War. And this is just a very well way of putting it political. It's like it's Japan's fault. Let Japan deal with it, even though the U.S. was the one that caused it with their nuclear testing at Bikini Beach, and and it's just one of the best movies I've seen. Probably one of the best Godzilla movies I've seen, and hopefully Godzilla Kong Fallen Kingdom will hopefully live up to the hype as I'm seeing it, because I've seen the first preview, and besides the baby Kong, it really looks like it's going to shape up like a good pointless monster movie. Okay, and the last movie I want to emphasize is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Now, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse has some things wrong with it, but I can find very little very little to complain about. I mean, I do not see like I do not see like things like them trying to be political messaging over the head, even though we do see like some things like some things in the background, but it's in the background. And like Stan Lee says, if he wants to do things like he wants to put like a political messaging in his comic books, he would do it in the background. And this is what the same thing he did. And this is about Miles trying to find his place in the world. And we even see Spider-Man trying to be to be the same way he is. It's like being Peter Parker in his first few years as Spider-Man, and we see how the cost of the entire of the entire of the entire thing of Into the Spider Verse cost that cost the entire thing. And like I did like some of the chase scene, and I did like Hobby Brown as I did like Hobby Brown as Spider Punk, but I did not like the way they did Spider-Man India, because he looks like a luchador, and I much prefer the design he has in the comic books. But other and the fact that they do degrade some of the male characters sometimes, but then they get there. Then those ones that are trying to degrade it get their comeuppance, and it's kind of a mixed bag when you're watching this. But one of the things that I liked about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was the leap of faith, and when they and it just seems like they just did that over and over and over again, and it just got a little too repetitive. But still, I did like the story, I did like the messaging, but I did not like that it ended in a cliffhanger, kind of like it did with Civil War, or Infinity War, Avengers, and so we're gonna have to wait a few more years for Sony to bring this. And it seems like if they're going to go the same route that the Ultimate Verse went, then we're probably going to see Peter Parker of Miles Morales' universe be brought back from the dead to help a world where there is no Spider-Man. But anyways, those were the best movies I saw in 2023. Now I'm going to go with some of the worst movies I saw in 2023. Now, the first worst movie I saw in 2023 is also the second and third, or also the third worst movie I saw in 2023. The second and third. And these are all from Disney. The first one I want to highlight is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And I really think that they should have just ended it with Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls, because this is just sad at this point. I mean, Steven Spielberg wasn't involved. Phoebe Waller-Bridge basically made it seem like it wasn't about Indiana Jones. It was about his goddaughter, which she was playing, and the entire thing was just a mess. I mean, there were so many reshoots. There were so many things happening on set that a lot of people left. Some Harrison Ford got injured, and it shows that this is just this the story was just secondary. It was just trying to make a point. And one of the things is that I do not like. I do not like the way that Lucasfilms is going. I mean, if this is how they're treating IPs, then I shudder to think what they'll do with the next Star Wars or the next big IP that they end up getting. And I really hope that they are able to get their game because I love Indiana Jones, and I cannot see I cannot see this doing anybody any favors. I mean, if they wanted to make an Indiana Jones, I would have said that they would have made it better if it was Indiana Jones, like young Indiana Jones. Like back in the day, there was this ABC series called Young Indiana Jones, and it showed Indiana Jones when he was like when he was a kid, and when he was in his teens, and when he was in his 20s, and this this all showed better better than what 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 KK and Phoebe, Phoebe did to this character, because this is just straight up character assassination at my point. Okay, moving on. The next movie I want to highlight as the worst was The Marvels. Now, it's just low hanging fruit at this point. I mean, The Marvels is just was just a mess, and no amount of bad CGI of Kelsey Grammer as bees, or kittens, or having or Miss Marvel's actress can erase how bad this movie was. I mean, this movie lost bank, and it is just so bad. It was just so bad. I mean, first you have first you have like them trying to make it even more serious than make it even more funny than it was serious, and then you get and then when the reviews start coming in and people don't like it, oh, it's sexism and misogyny and racism. That's not going to work anymore. But the only thing I liked were the kittens and the actress from Miss Marvel that played Miss Marvel. She is just a sweetheart, and I do not mind seeing her in other Marvel properties. But one of the things that Marvel wants to do is make her the leader of the Young Avengers. But they basically announced what a rumor says, that the Young Avengers are going to consist of Ms. Marvel, Kate Bishop, Hawkeye, Stature, Stature, Ant Man's daughter, and even and teenage Loki, and that's it. Oh, and Ironheart. So that's five women and one guy. Yeah, that's not going to work, especially if you have such a like a emphasis an emphasis of trying to pander towards men. You're degrading them, and but that's neither here nor there. And but the it's just that the story was terrible. The villain was just a villain was a villain for just because she was wrong, and it's not really her fault, instead of being a villain for evil's sake, or for wanting power, revenge, or greed. That's the way I think villains should be written. and and the whole thing was just a mess from the beginning to end. So yeah, that was that was terrible. And the last Disney movie in this one is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Now, this one is easy because the special effects were just terrible. They were terrible. I mean, Modok looked like you got a Barbie head and put GI Joe head GI Joe parts on it. And like, I know Disney is more capable of making visual arts. I mean, they have some of the best visual artists in the world, yet this seemed to very lacking. And the whole thing with his with Scott Lang and his relationship with his activist daughter, who seems to be smarter than everybody, is just such a mess. I mean, I did like the first two Ant-Man movies, and it was just like one of the worst. This was just derailed everything. This was like the Spider-Man 3 of of the old Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. And one of the lines that were like, what did, what has Ant-Man done lately? I mean, what have you done lately, Dad? And it's just like, he saved the world, and you have the audacity to talk down to him. But yeah, those were three of the worst movies I've ever seen. But the last movie I want to highlight as the worst really hits me, and that's Saw X or Saw 10. And this is just like, it was just so sad for me to see this, to put this on the list, because I am a big fan of the Saw movies. I liked all I liked all of them. I liked the interlocking stories, the type that the everything that went through into making this great story and interlocking narrative of John Kramer. But like, I thought that, like, maybe like the Book of Saw may have been the worst, but no, was just bad. I mean, even the main villain got away scot free, no maiming, no nothing, and it's just seeing this, and it's like the thrill is gone. I don't want to see any more Saw movies, so just let this IP breathe its last breath and have its have its own death. But anyways, those were the worst movies I have seen in 2023, and hopefully you will try and avoid them. Okay, so now let's move on to the best anime of 2023. Now, the anime that I'm looking at are more out of the box anime. I've gotten more into the anime that seems to be the less most popular anime, and these are like your new versions of isekais, or new versions of fantasy, even some new versions of the zombie outbreak anime. So the first anime I want to highlight was Zom 100. Now this was a very good anime to me. Now the premise of this anime is that a salary worker is basically working a dead end job where he's basically told to basically work and work and work and do all this overtime and not get everything. But then the zombie apocalypse happens, and he is having the best day of his life and everything about it. He finally gets is able to do the things that he wants. Like, he gets to get a motorcycle, he gets to drink as much beer as he wants, he gets to go at a mixer party. And this is like one of the things that you would do. This is not some of the things that you would not do during a zombie apocalypse, and that's what's so funny. I mean, you see him standing up to his boss, you see him confessing himself to the girl he likes even though she was already a zombie, and you see him trying out new things, and he's just trying while he's trying to survive. He wants to fill out all these things on a bucket list before he becomes a zombie himself. But anyways, that was another that was another great anime. All right, the next one I want to highlight is Handyman Saito in Another World. Now, this one is another out of the box anime which I thoroughly enjoyed because this is a different kind of isekai anime. And those of you who aren't known, isekais are like the ones where someone from our world is taken to another fantasy world or a sci-fi world where they become like the savior of this different world. And I have liked it in the beginning, but then more and more and more of these animes came out, and I just got tired of them. But there was this one in particular, a couple in particular that really got my attention. So this is the first one I'm highlighting, and this is big, and it's basically called. And the reason I picked Handyman Saito in Another World is because it's just a guy. It's basically says what it is in the title. A handyman who is in another world. He has no powers. He has no secret cheat skill. He has no know-how. The only thing he knows how to do is the tools, and he has no magical weapons. He only has the tools and the knowledge to use these tools, and he becomes better at picking locks than a locksmith. Then, because he was a locksmith, he knows how to put together weapons and create armor better than any other blacksmith. And this is all really amazing because not only are you focusing on Saito, but you're focusing on his party and all the other these other background characters that show up throughout the anime, and it is just a blast. And you're always trying to you see the in-depth stories behind each of the characters behind it. So one of the isekai animes that I really enjoyed this year. The second isekai anime is I got a cheat skill in another world and became unrivaled in the real world too. And I like this anime because it shows that you don't need to be a Chad to be a good guy. Basically, the anime is about a guy, an average guy who's fat, he's ugly, he's smelly. The main character's name is Tenjo, and like I said, he's fat, he's smelly, he's ugly, and he always has this never say die attitude that he always tries to do the best he can, even though life's given him these so much crap that he does the best he can. He inherited a house from his grandfather after his family and his parents ended up disowning him, and everything that has happened to him he does just to get by. And what one day out of frustration he ends up breaking the mirror and finds a a, a gateway to another world. And it starts out as a kind of as the regular kind of isekai where he's in another world, but then it goes back to the real world where he actually comes back and he becomes handsome. His body changes so dramatically, and that's after he kills one monster, and he ends up leveling up through a system that actually helps him become a better person. And he does this, and it shows how even though when he gets these skills, he becomes a better person. He never changes because he has these skills now. Never changes because he has money now. He is the type of person that he always was because of the way his grandfather taught him, and not being the most powerful guy in the world, and, and probably the most handsome guy. he never changes, and better, he never changes to the for the worse. He stays his same helpful self who will always go out and be the best guy for a person. He'll take the shirt off his back for the next person. So yeah, this is I like this one because of the character arc this character goes through, because it shows that even though life gives you crap and you become what other people want to be, don't let like the success go to your head, and stay humble and stay positive of what you have. Now the other another anime I want to highlight is Mashal, Magic and Muscle. Now this is basically One Punch Man in a Harry Potter universe. Now the premise is that Mash that in this world, magic has taken over, is basically everywhere. Everybody uses magic for certain things, and in this world there's a character named Mash, and he lives in the forest with his grandfather, and he has no magic whatsoever. He can't use basic spells or anything, but what he does have is incredible physical strength that he's honed over the years. And he is basically like a he is basically a lovable doofus, because even though he has like these incredible feat he does like these incredible feats of strength, he sometimes forgets he sometimes can't read the room. He even forgets how to open a door. So, and like but he is like a very but he is like a very strong guy. I mean, he is going toe to toe with wizards, and he is smacking the spells right out of it. He is breaking their shields, and the one thing he does is he can go one on one with any of these wizards with Godzilla like puppets, and goes he goes ham on these guys. And this is just it is just so funny to watch. Like it the Mash is basically trying to become the grand visionary. So he goes to magic school, so he can change the politics of a grand visionary, just so he can live peacefully with his grandpa. And that's all this guy wants. His intentions are good, and the guy who's sponsoring him, even though he wants to use Mash to get a promotion, Mash basically does it so he won't. So he can spend the rest of his life living peacefully with his grandpa. And this is it's just a fun ride to see this, and I am so excited to start what and I am so excited because the time this video comes out, season 2 is already out, and I'm pretty sure that it is going to be a blast like the first season. And this and hopefully we'll get more in depth on who the grand visionaries are, who Innocent Zero is, and I'm gonna start reading the manga because as of July 2023, the manga has officially ended, and I would like to see where it goes, and hopefully it'll gain enough Mash will gain enough popularity to go for season 3. All right, so the next two animes I want to highlight are basically romance animes, and yeah, laugh it up. The guy who likes grim dark fantasy actually likes romance animes, but these animes are so beautifully told that just can't you can't excuse me, you can't help but love the characters and the struggles these people for love. All right, so the first one I want to highlight is My Happy Marriage, and this series basically uh is basically like if you took Cinderella, Beauty and the Beast, and a whole bunch of Japanese Shinto magic and rolled it into one, you get this. Now the story is about Mio, who actually was born who was actually born in a high society family, but she's treated like a servant because it looks like she has no spiritual no spiritual supernatural powers, and only her sister does. So her half sister, who is and so she is treated like a servant by her father, her stepmother, and her sister, and she is given and she is given to someone named Kayuka Kayoko as a as kind of like the the marriage the whole marriage thing, the whole arranged marriage thing, because her sister is going to be marrying her best friend, and her sister is going to be marrying her best friend, and she's basically given to another uh, someone to basically get her out of the hair. But this guy is very is known as a ruthless soldier who has had many fiancées before, but they had always left after 3 days because he was so scary to them. But Mio is so sweet and innocent, kind of like any type of Disney princess, that he could not help but fall in love with her. And like I said, this is like Beauty and the Beast. And throughout the whole series, we see that he secretly has these powers that not only the family that another family wants as a bloodline, but also the Japanese government of that time. And basically, Kyoko is is basically fighting for her, and Mio is basically fighting for him. And we see this and it is just such a beautiful done anime. And I definitely suggest this, even if you're not a fan of romance. The story is just so impactful and so beautifully told. You should definitely watch this anime. The other romance anime I want to go over is called Toma-chan is a Girl. And yeah, it's basically about a tomboy who falls in love with her childhood friend, and but he only sees so he only sees him as the rough and tumble guy that he grew up with. And even when they were kids, he mistaked him for a boy. But he like the first episode, she confesses her feelings to Toma. The main character confesses her feelings to Junichiro, who is basically the the guy her childhood friend and the guy she's in love with. And he thinks it's a joke that she actually loves him as a bro, but she actually become they when you see the while the series goes on, you see all these funny mishaps with all the friends that they made, with all the friends like Toma's best friend and Junichiro's best friend, and and the and the guy who's basically and their family. And the whole thing is it's just a romantic anime with that is so funny, because you see things like this, and it just gets under it just busts your gut how funny the situations become. And really you really feel like you're going through the journey between these two falling in love. And the ending, I don't want to spoil it for any of you guys, but the ending is just so worth it, that you're just glad that these two finally end up. And even with other romantic comedies, you don't see like a definitive end. They just leave it open ended. But in this one, you actually see like a definitive end in this kind of scenario. So yeah, check this one out. Tomo-chan is a Girl. and that is all that's the that it should help you out with your romantic fix. The next anime I want to talk about is called Berserk of Gluttony, and this is an anime, a fantasy anime where people are born with certain skills, and Fate is born with the skill of ravenous gluttony, and he is just this guy is just so just treated so terrible by these people, people who are supposed to be the holy knights, and I use that in parentheses. The only holy knight that treats him with any sort of dignity is named Roxy, and Roxy sees tries to help Fate as much as he can, but the holy knights that hire him to basically do their job for him treat him like trash. They kick him. They kick him. They basically throw his money on the ground. They'll kick him. They'll break his bone. They'll hurt him and say you do not talk back to him when he tries to make things to explain his situation. But it just shows that these people are scum dressed in shiny clothing. But the whole thing goes when Fate discovers that his endless gluttony skill actually causes the things that he kills, their souls is devoured by the gluttony skill, and he is able to get stronger through that. His skill, well, even though his like level doesn't go beyond one, his skills will go beyond that, and he'll gain more and more skills. He finds a sword which is called greed that helps him, and that helps him and understand to use his skill called of gluttony. And this gluttony skill shows that even though he and this gluttony skill has a adverse side effect that if he ever goes starving, full blown starving, he'll go on a rampage. And he decides to use it, and there's this entire political play going on to kill off Lady Roxy through the kingdom, through the kingdom, because she's such a beacon of hope, and they're hoping to use this as a battle cry for something and create a better thing through the kingdoms. But Fate doesn't want this to happen, so he decides to use his skill to protect Roxy. And it really reminds me of Spider-Man or any other type of superhero. They'll use their skills to or powers to help this people that they love and protect the innocent from people that they know will want to abuse this power. I mean, I got a really strong sensation for the movie Black Mask. If you don't remember the old Jet Li movie back in the day, where he is this super soldier, and he uses his skill as a super soldier to protect the world from the super soldiers that are taking out other criminals and become more and more like that, and are trying to take over the criminal empire. But that's neither here nor there. But the, this anime has great has great great fight scenes. It was just such a blast to watch, seeing these these big scale great scale battles, and it just makes me love fantasy anime all over again, because I've always liked stories like this where they come out where the little guy comes out on top, and he gives up everything just to save the maiden fair. So that's the other one. And now the last three anime are basically to continuations to to current animes. First anime I want to talk about is Spy Family Season 2. Now, this is a continuation of the current Spy Family, and it is just so funny. You get to see. a lot of episodes, and the whole thing just continues the entire wacky adventures between Lloyd, Yor, and Anya, and like there are some episodes where like Yor gets shot in the butt, and Lloyd, who's this expert spy and is trained to read people, doesn't even know that Yor is in pain, and he comes up with these ridiculous with this big extravagant date, except Yor cannot do anything because she cannot sit down, she cannot try on pants, she cannot go to the spa because she got shot in the butt and it hurts her sitting down, and and it is just so funny to see this goes out there. There's an episode where Bond the dog, who no who is basically a telepath, is basically sees himself dying from yours cooking, and so he leaves to go to get Lloyd, even though he's on a mission. And then there's like you focus on other, and then there's like this big mission where Yor is protecting a diplomat who's leaving the or a member of the royal of an important family who's leaving the country to try and with her son so they could try to have a peaceful life, and they're after a bunch of they're being chased by a bunch of assassins, and like we see so many things going off, and how Lloyd and Anya get involved because they end up being in the same yacht as Yor. But like it's just a blast to watch. And one of the things I really like is seeing the relationship between Yor, Anya, and Lloyd, because these three characters are basically orphans. They all lost their parents with through different circumstances of life, and these people are just trying to live normal lives, and they end up finding happiness with these complete strangers, even though they keep their secret lives secret amongst themselves. It's not a family of spies. It's basically a family that who happen to be spies. But anyways, that is the first one of the continuation of anime. The second one is the Demon Slayer, the Swordsmith Village arc, and this is just such a great continuation of the Demon Slayer series. Demon Slayer has been a great anime. In this one, you see Tanjiro and Nezuko go to the Secret Swordsmith Village arc in order to get Tanjiro's sword repaired after it was damaged in the Entertainment District arc. And we meet the Mist Pillar, and we also meet the Love Tokoji, and we see the different techniques that the swordsmiths use, and we also see this epic fight between the demons and the demon hunters as they invade the swordsmith village. And like every other Demon Slayer, we get an in depth story of the demons behind the attack. Well, actually, just one, because the other one is just basically one two dimensional madman that likes art. But he was the least type of the least interesting one of the demons that's basically in the series. But the next one is going to be the Tokuji's training arc, which comes out later this year, and I cannot wait for this one because it is just a couple more. It is the one before the final season, which is the Infinite Castle arc or the Mujin Castle. and 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 the and the ending of this series is just so great when we see Nezuko. Oops, don't want to spoil it, but yeah, go watch this anime. If you haven't seen Demon Slayer, watch the entire series. Watch the entire series, including the Mugen Trains movie, which it is just so great. All right, and the final anime, which is a continuation of current animes and the ones and the anim, what I say was the best anime this year is Rising of the Shield Hero season 3. Now this now Rising of the Shield Hero has an interesting story. It's a great isekai, but this one thing is that it got a lot of flack for season 2 because of the bad graphics and the fact that they skipped a lot of the story, which caused it to get a lot of bad flack from the fans who feel like they shouldn't have rushed it so that they could go into the alternate world. But Rising of the Shield Hero season 3 picks up where it left off in season 2. Now Fumi, Raftalia, and Philo have returned from the alternate world, and he is getting and he learns that the after the spirit tortoise is has been defeated, the phoenix, the great phoenix, the spirit of the phoenix will come up, and he needs the four heroes to help him. But unfortunately, all four heroes are down on their luck, and each are not getting any better because Melty, aka Bitch, is causing them to to go overboard with their depression, with their need for gaining power, their need for their greed and everything. This causes them to unleash the curse series on each of their weapons, and like now Fumi with the curse series of the shield, it ends up causing them to be cursed in their type in their in their way of no in their way of in their core shields, and causes them to stunt them level up. Causes them to, and it also hits them psychologically. But hopefully with now Fumi there to basically help them, he is able to bring them to to snap them out of it, and now they're basically getting ready for the inevitable return of the Phoenix Spirit. And that was before another Raftalia ended up being targeted for assassination by a demi human nation, which I'll leave you watching it, because this is just a return to form of Rising of the Shield Hero. Now Fumi coming back, people not trusting him, but he keeps on he'll persevere and becomes the greatest hero of them all. And so yeah, Rising of the Shield Hero actually made to 2023 so much better after so many bad animes that I saw over the summer. And I'm going to go over these animes next with the worst animes of 2023. Okay, so 2023 was had a lot of bad animes, and whoo boy, some of them stunk. But these were the ones that stuck out to my mind as they were some of the worst that I've ever seen. So bad that I could only stomach uh, one episode of them before I gave up. I gave up completely on it, and the first three are basically isekai animes, and the like I said, with my best of, the whole isekai trope just got so saturated that sometimes they're trying new things to try to get people to watch them, but some of these are just terrible. The first four I'm going to talk about will will just some of them will just make you roll your eyes, and like I said, some of these are just so bad that I couldn't even stomach watching the entire anime. I mean, I I couldn't even be bothered remembering the name of the main characters. So the first one is basically reborn as a vending machine. Now wander the dungeon, and this is basically an isekai anime where the main character is killed by a vending machine and he becomes a vending machine. And this is, I know it's played for laughs, but it is just so stupid. You're in a fantasy world, and right there in the middle of the series, that's a goddamn vending machine. I mean, come on. This guy's these people aren't even trying anymore. I mean, at least let him talk. The only thing he says is welcome and thank you, as for yes or no. And this actually is the worst. Was one of the least of the worst animes I've seen. I saw, and it actually was was kind of funny in some parts, but I couldn't even care. I got a chuckle out of one of them, some of these parts, but I couldn't care less with the rest of the episodes because I stopped watching after three. The next one is my unique skill makes me OP even at level one, and it is another isekai anime where an office worker works himself to death. He wakes up in a dungeon, and and all his skills are basically level one. And he basically they're basically F rank. All his skills are basically F rank, and but his drop skill is basically level S, so which makes him better at dropping better items. But this anime is just so dumb. I mean, you have a you have an a princess who is basically getting air getting air for to sell on to sell some some poor schmuck from the things that she sells. And yeah, and that reminds me of that gamer girl that sold her bath water, and it's just so dumb. It's just so dumb. The entire premise is interesting because people that can't grow food or get meat the usual way. They have to go to dungeons and kill monsters. But the whole, I mean, it's not it's so dumb, and I just couldn't care less about it because then he becomes OP because he gets a revolver, and it just becomes like another power fantasy anime, which is just like ugh, makes me want to roll my eyes even while I'm talking about it. The next anime is Butaraba, the story of a man who turned into a pig, and yeah, it is exactly how it sounds. A guy who's basically a pervert, a masochistic pervert, turns into this noble woman, just dies and turns into this noble woman's pig, and he is basically like very he's like a this he basically does these things on purpose, and he asks for punishment. And I know it's supposed to be for laughs, but come on, I mean, come on, it's not that funny. I don't know if it's because of Japanese has a different sense of humor than we over here, us over here at the West, but I didn't find it funny. I just found it disturbing, and it and the whole premise. It's this girl is basically a minor, and it basically has a guy who basically a grown ass man in a pig's body wanting punishment, and that is kind of disturbing to me. I don't know. I don't want to get into the whole lolly thing, but that kind of made me want to look twice and probably get the FCC on board. But I don't want to talk about this anime anymore because it makes me feel dirty. Now I need a shower. The final isekai anime in the worst category would have to be Am I Actually the Strongest? And this is just one of the bad and anime in general because basically this guy it's about a shut-in who dies and he's given a chance to be reborn in the other world, and he actually does this the he actually become gets born into this fantasy world just so he can be a shut-in. And but at first it looks like he's going to it looks like it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay because his family, originally his royal family, left him outside because they couldn't read his magic correctly, and it made it seem like he had no magic, so they left him in the woods. And he was raised by a demon wolf, and he was adopted by his uncle. But the more and more it goes into the series, you see how this anime just shows how this guy didn't even change. He wants to do is sit in his room and do nothing, even though he's in this elite school. He doesn't want to do anything. He'll only do anything unless it's unless it helps himself. And like say he hears about this bandit group, and then he doesn't want to help at all. But he hears this bandit group has a lot of gold, so he go and it's in a gold mine, so he goes and and takes care of this bandit group. But it's just so dumb. The whole premise, the entire thing is really really awful. And like I said, too many isekais have been done. This whole isekai genre has been done to death. And I just can't. I don't know if I can stomach another isekai. The next one I want to highlight is the Kingdoms of Ruin, and this started with such promise, but then it just sort of swerved into full edge lord territory. I mean, the at first it seems like this guy, the the guy who the main character is basically sees his master, who's a witch, be killed right in front of him, and he is basically he is basically he is basically in prison for all these years, but then he gets out and he wants revenge, but he starts killing people recklessly, and he says all people are guilty because they took all humans are guilty because they killed his master. And it is just so so disturbing to see like him killing indiscriminately. And even when this other character who basically is this good witch tries to help him and see past revenge, he can't. He can't, and he says everyone is guilty because they happen to be part of humanity. And it is just so. And this guy is supposed to be the hero. We're supposed to be rooting for this guy. Yet it reminds me of X-Men of the Krakoa era, where the X-Men are basically separatist races, and thing they're doing everything that they're becoming terrorists, they're becoming mercenaries, they're becoming everything that is frowned upon as an X-Men. And we're supposed to be rooting for these people as the heroes, but it's really hard to root for them, especially, and this anime really emphasizes that even though there are some that even though that there are people who can be a villain, there are some redeeming qualities about them that helps us sympathize with this guy with them. But this guy is just evil incarnate, and he doesn't care who he kills as long as he gets his revenge and kills everyone. And it it's just so stupid, or just a dumb way to talk about this. And you might like about this edge lord type anime, but I am not a fan. I got over my edginess back in my 20s. I guess that's why I never got into Death Note. But speaking of edge lords, the final the final the final worst anime I'm I want to highlight is Eminence of Shadow season two, the Eminence in Shadow season 2. And this whole anime is just, I don't know how to describe it. The guy thinks himself as Batman, but he's more like, I don't know, Prometheus. And because he thinks he's doing this for justice, but he's doing this for himself. And it's and this guy is in it for himself. He doesn't care about anybody else. He only cares about himself. He doesn't care about the people he is do he helps. He helps. I mean, even in the first season, it shows him in his other life where he lets a girl get kidnapped by these rapists so he could follow them and beat them half to death with crowbars. And I mean, this guy is supposed to be the hero also, yet he has this edgy edge lord persona, and it just sounds like a D&D horror story just waiting to come to life. And I mean, you're allowed to like these animes, but I got over edgelord stuff years, and I've matured. But those were the worst animes of 2023. But let's highlight the best video games of 2023. Okay, so the first game of the best of 2023 is Bolt Gun. Now, Bolt Gun, this was done by Auroch Digital, with publishing by Focus Entertainment. And Bolt Gun is like one of the best retro pixelated violence I've ever seen in a long time. And it is just so awesome because it is in the Warhammer universe, and I am a big Warhammer fan. Even though I'm kind of a noob, I always say there are three types of Warhammer fans. There are Warhammer fans that are into the tabletop. There are Warhammer fans that are into the lore, and then there are Warhammer fans that are into the video games. And with games like Total War and with Total War and 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 Dawn of War, there are not Warhammer seems to go specifically to like the strategy game, but then there are like diamonds in the rough, like Space Marine and Warhammer Space Marine and Vermintide, and then there's this one. It is just so lore accurate. The guns, they feel so great. The the jibs, and you see so much action, so much authenticity going on into this game. It is just so vibrant, so so Oh, I need to take a breath. It is just so vibrant, so pixelated violence, and it is just great, great, great FPS FPS nostalgia. It's just so great to see more and more games going into the Warhammer universe, especially retro games where it's becoming very niche and boomer shooters are starting to hit the exit. But it's good to see that Warhammer is getting into the action. Okay, the other one I'd like to get into, which is another retro shooter, is called Turbo Overkill. Turbo Overkill is a cyberpunk aesthetic video game first person shooter where you play as Johnny Turbo and you're this often you get RoboCopped in the beginning and you play you're basically a mercenary for corpos. You're a bounty hunter and you have instead of like this blade arm, you have a chainsaw leg, which you can use like a half pike, and you can see like very big representations like you have the peach trees building from Dread. You have like Blade Runner esque cars. You have like an AI like like an AI similar to HAL, and then you have and it is and you have like this total overkill like I this sophisticated AI virus kind of like in System Shock, and you could see the representations that they have. They wear it on their sleeves, and it is just mindless, senseless fun. The great the it's and you and it is just so fun to bring it out and play once in a while. And these are the people from Apogee who actually came back and you and they always have, and this is like a great comeback for them as a gaming company, and I cannot wait to see what they do after this, because I can always use some more and more boomer shooters. But leaving from boomer shooters, let's go to Souls like or hack and slash likes or hack and slash, whatever you want to call them, because there are a couple games. One is a hack and slash, another one is a Souls like. The first is the hack and slash, which came out during as launch, and that is Hi-Fi Rush. Hi-Fi Rush is just so fun. Has the essence of Devil May Cry. You get the beat, and you use music. You get like it's very challenging. Very colorful, very challenging, very difficult at sometimes. You got the environments, the the characters, the the move set, the music. Oh God, the music is just so great that you could just even the original stuff that they came up for streamers to be able to to play on their streams so that they won't get copyright struck by the fans that they were able to get to. And like you have bands like Nine Inch Nails, the Prodigy and others, and it is just so fun to play, especially with the last boss fight with the perfect drug going on in the background. But the Devil May Cry esque of Hi-Fi Rush, which can always burn. It's always fun, and I just hope that they make another one. The other one that I want to bring, the other hack and slash game that I want to bring up is a Souls like, and that is Lies of P. And Lies of P is based off the Pinocchio mythos, and it is a Souls like, a steampunk Souls like. It's basically like Bloodborne, except instead of like Cthulhu monsters, you're fighting mechanical beings, and the story is just so rich and so engaging, like every other Souls like. You play as P, or or if you want to go Pinocchio, and you have like, and you must find out what's going on, such as the such as the kill what's going on with the plague, why are the humans dying, why have the puppets rebelled, and everything, and what does Geppetto have anything to do with, if whatsoever, if he does. And I have not finished the game, but it is just so fun and challenging, and it is such a blast to play. Okay, and now going into the next one, Hogwarts Legacy is another one of the games that I want to highlight as one of the best games of 2023. Now, I know the whole J.K. Rowling thing and everything, but I'm able to am able to separate the art from the artist. And having this whole J.K. Rowling thing, I just don't. I just couldn't mind. I just wanted to play a wizard game, and people who were basically putting up a hate campaign for anybody who was streaming that. Yeah, go just get a life. But yeah, playing Hogwarts Legacy is such a great game. It's it's like it's like being in the actual wizarding world. You have like great RP role playing dynamics, great and great characteristics, and the original characters that they came up with, is just like something you would see in a Harry Potter book, and you really want, and it's almost like you're in that world. So yeah, I always think that if a good video game makes you believe that you are immersed in that world, so you can actually have that feeling of being in that world. So yeah, Hogwarts Legacy is such a great game. You 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 want yeah, it just makes me want to play it, and maybe pick up a Harry Potter book or two just to relive it. The next game is a role playing game and the ultimate Dungeons and Dragons experience in video games, and that is Baldur's Gate 3. Now, Baldur's Gate 3 basically won the Game of the Year award, and it's deservedly so deserved it. I'm not in the same camp of Spider Man 2 because I haven't played it, but Baldur's Gate 3, I have been watching Let's Plays. I have been playing on my PC, even with the lag going on, and it is just like a great great. I've been playing the demo, and it is just the ultimate D&D experience. I mean, it is like you're playing an entire D&D campaign. You have you can be do whatever you want do with consequences. You can be ultimate evil, you could be ultimate good, or you could be somewhere in the gray area, and it just brings up so much so much great great role playing moments. I mean, you even get the dice to let the dice gods decide to what you can do and what you will do, and it just makes it is awesome. This whole experience of Baldur's Gate 3. I played most of all of the Baldur's Gates, and I love seeing that this new studio was able to bring the rich history of of Dungeons and Dragons here, even though Wizards of the Coast seems to it lack its love for the history of Dungeons and Dragons. But anyways, the next the next couple the next three games I have are basically two remakes and a DLC. So the first remake is a Dead Space remake. Now the Dead Space remake has always been on on my iffy list because it's EA, and EA doesn't do anything unless they think that they can make a quick buck. And the whole thing about with EA, I thought that it was just quick turnaround, just so for them to make a quick buck. And I just thought I didn't want to go want to spend my money, but then I played the demo and it is just awesome. Awesome. I mean, it answers so many questions of what of what happened to Isaac, of what Isaac saw, and what was going on throughout the non-stromos. They were able to make the entire rework the entire stories, and they even gave Isaac a voice. Like the original voice actor of Isaac Clarke came back to reprise his performance, and it was just great. It was just great seeing him doing the role of Isaac Clarke and interacting with the crew. Even though the original Dead Space, Isaac was a silent protagonist. Having him be a voice, giving him a voice, actually changed the entire dynamic, and I think it was for the better. So yeah, Dead Space Dead Space was great. The other remake was the Resident Evil 4 remake, and it is it was just so great to see this remake. I mean, the first remake was like B movie action cheese. The first Resident Evil 4 was B movie action cheese, but now we have Resident Evil 4 remake, and it is just more grounded, still has that Resident Evil feeling. And you have more of an in-depth character analysis with the characters like Louise, Leon, Ashley, Krieger, and Ava. It's just it, the whole story and they remade it made it faithfully, and it was just it's such a great gameplay. And even they even brought back the merchant, which actually is very good nostalgia. The whole thing the whole thing feels great, like the action set pieces, the whole the whole boss fights. They redid everything. They took out the quick time events, which was basically a good thing for me, because the quick time events were a pain in the ass, and now that I'm getting older, my reflexes aren't as they used to be. But it's such a great it's such a great play. I mean, I basically love the mini games that they have, and they and those basically decorative briefcase chains that you can win. They have more of a actually have a way to help your gameplay, and with each and so it gives you some incentive to play those mini games. And so yeah, Resident Evil 4 remake is a plus. That I mean, Capcom did it again. Capcom did it again with their remakes, and hopefully they could do it again with with Resident Evil 5. Even though that a lot of people will try to get on their ass for a white guy shooting African people in Africa. But other than that, I hope Capcom is able to turn around, especially now that they're going after modders. But still, I hope that their greedy CEOs just let the gamers have fun, and just go on making video games, and inspire people to help with video games. Okay, and the DLC that actually made me stop playing a game that I was kind of disappointed in, but the this game actually got me back into playing this game. This DLC got me back into playing this game. So that is Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty. And the DLC is just amazing. I mean, it's the skill tree is now like a regular role playing game, and the and the and the experience points where you could get like headhunter or or shinobi or even slugger, that they help out a lot with your gameplay. And the story is just so great of 2077 with Phantom Liberty. Idris Elba is such a great character as Solomon Reed. You even have in infiltration mission, you have a straight performance concert going, pop performance going on in the background while you're in an infiltration mission. So yeah, it is such a great add on to this game. And it really it really gets me that CD Projekt Red was able to turn this around and make it work. And I'm I'm gonna go with my friend Makani on this, that they should have waited for they should have waited until they got everything ironed out to release it, because a lot of people are getting tired of release it now, fix it later, which is actually costing the video game industry a lot. And so hopefully with like releases like Baldur's Gate 3 and Hi-Fi Rush, where they were ready from the get-go, and there were very little bugs, very little problems, and and the and and now we can see like AAA studios put their backs into it, so we can get some of the best games that we want. But we're gonna have to go into the worst games, and these are the ones. And I am talking bad. I'm talking bad graphics, scam, possible scams, even glitchy, bad art, and disappointing storytelling. So yeah, let's end this and go to the worst games of 2023. So let's talk about the worst games of 2023. Now, let's get this out of the way. The first worst game is The Day Before by Fantastic Studios, and this is a scam. This was a scam, plain and simple. The thing, the entire notion of a multiplayer survival game, where a zombie survival game where you basically can drive around in this big open area and interact with other people, it was just too good to be true, and it was. I mean, it was the entire premise of The Day Before was basically one of one based on lies, where they basically told you, oh, we're going to have this and this, and it's going to be better, it's going to the best multiplayer experience you're going to ever witness. And when you see the end product, you're going to be happy. And they had so much production. It was on IGN, it was marketed on Times Square, it was on the VGAs numerous times, and it just not only disappointed, but it destroyed any hope that gamers have for a studio, for indie studios, wondering if they're going to be able to deliver on their promises. I mean, we have that already have that much trouble with AAA studios. Now with indie studios, I mean, the only one I know of that had a tumultuous history and ended up like The Day Before was Star Citizen. The Day Before was taken off Steam, and they're offering refunds all over, and the day before is essentially dead. The servers will end next week, and we will never hear anything about The Day Before maybe about one of the biggest scams. I mean, they promised one thing, but it ended up being an extraction shooter full of glitches and bugs and subpar missions. And didn't this really deserved its fate. Speaking about games that deserve their fate is Skull Island: Rise of Kong by Iguana B. Now, Iguana B is known for flipping out games for a cheap budget, but this one is very, very, very cheap. I mean, the graphics are terrible, very PS1 or PS2, and I'm being generous, PS2 graphics, and the entire the entire thing is it's repetitive, it's boring. The entire land seems dead. The entire world seems dead. And this is supposed to be a game that came out. I can understand it for coming out on the Switch, but it coming out on the PS5, this was supposed to be like this great game for to expand on the Monarch universe, but it just took a big big steaming dump on it, and now it's one of the worst games of this year. So yeah, Skull Island, Rise of Khan, really disappointing game, really disappointing, really bad graphics, really bad gameplay, really bad storytelling, and and it really deserves its place right here in one of the worst games of 2023. The next game I want to talk about is Redfall by Arcane Studios. And I was kind of disappointed in this game because Bethesda seems to put too much stock in it. And I really like the premise of this entire game, of it being a town taken over by vampires, and you're a bunch of hunters who are fighting to save this town. But the whole thing was glitchy, buggy. The servers would crash, and on top of that, the progression system would was very like glitchy. I mean, if a host was hosting a story mission, only he would get progression into the story. You would have to host your own story mission to get progression to that one story. So you'd have to play the mission again. Only you'd have to be the host, and it was just one of those things that would cause a lot of headaches, especially to people who just want to play the game and see the story, and hopefully as it went on. I mean, this is the same thing that Blizzard did with Overwatch, only that they promised so much when they couldn't deliver, and it really backfired on them, and they lost fans. And I think Arcane Studio is gonna lose fans as well. The next game, which was a big disappointment and worst game in the year, was Forspoken by Luminous Production. And Forspoken was a very divisive game when it first came out, but the entire character, the art, the game engine looked like it was starting to show its age. The Luminous engine was starting to show its age, and it may have worked with Final Fantasy, but this game did not. And plus, this open world was very dead, and very the gameplay was repetitive. the the dialogue was very cringe, very Josh Whedon-ish, which can be a good thing, but very like it here it was just cringe. And just recently, the with all this stuff that that has happened with Stellar Blade Online just recently with Stellar Blade and the review and how they said that the model was unrealistic, but then they revealed that it was actually based off a Korean model, and the guy who actually brought this up said that there were better models in Forspoken. I bet he feels dumb because the models in Forspoken were horrendous, and th- this just shows that not even some of the best game studios fall. So Luminous Productions, who were offshoot of Square Enix, closed its doors after the poor reception of this game after the DLC came out. So this was the last of we'll hear of Forspoken. The next game also caused the studio to shut down, and that is Lord of the Rings Gollum, and by Daedalic Entertainment. And the the whole thing is just so unnecessary. It was just so unnecessary. I mean, there were some good elements like the stealth mechanic and the choices mechanic, where you can either choose to be Smeagol or Gollum. But this whole thing just was terrible. I mean, the story was terrible, the graphics were terrible, the glitches were too much to be ignored. I mean, the whole thing, it was just a big cluster cluck, and I don't think anybody would wants to play a game of based on Golem anymore. I mean, when you take something that is based off Lord of the Rings and you don't show the amount of love and detail that is given to Tolkien, that Tolkien put into it, you are going to get a very negative backlash. And this is the same thing that happened with Rings of Power, and the same thing which happened to Wizards of the Coast with their Magic the Gathering Lord of the Rings box set, which I'll get to later with the world's with the best and worst tabletops. But right now, to see this game go up in flames and see another studio die is just so heart disheartening, especially for game developers who want to make games that will entertain people. All right, and the final game I want to say was the worst of 2023 was Saints Row 2022, the DLCs. Now, this has the three DLCs: Heist and Hustle, Doc 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 Ketchum's Murder Circus, and a Song of Dust and Fire, or Ice and Dust, whatever you want to call it. I mean, this was just more crap that nobody asked for. I mean, the whole thing uh, about Saints Row 2022 was a bunch of hipsters trying to be gangsters to pay off their student loans, and it was just like it was like DEI all over the place. They had to get sensitivity readers because they didn't want to offend people by being too gangsta, and these people weren't even gangsters. I mean, this this entire debacle caused Volition to unfortunately close their doors earlier last year, and so Volition is gone, and I don't think we'll be getting any support for Saints Row 2022. And just recently, it was actually for free, and I don't think anybody even wanted to buy that. I wouldn't even wish my worst enemy to play this game. But that is the worst games of 2022, and I'm going to close out with the video game section by talking about two of the most disappointing games of 2023. So, disappointing games of 2023. Only two come to mind. And it's not that these games are bad, it's just that they are less than what I expected. I was really excited for these two games, and they really let me down, either one way or the other. The first one is Starfield, and Starfield was Bethesda's newest IP since Elder Scrolls and Fallout, and they were going to do the the whole infinite galaxy kind of thing, and the whole thing just goes it and the whole like gameplay is just so boring at some points. I mean, I do like the StarCraft and the space battle, the StarCraft creation and the battles and everything that you could in the gameplay, and but it's things like the mining, the character interactions. It just shows the creation engines is long in the tooth now, and hopefully, and the story is very boring. I mean, you really want to get you. It's really hard to get invested into this narrative, which they created, and it's I just didn't want to play it. I mean, Phantom Liberty got me off this game, and I'll probably go back to it when new DLC comes out. But the whole thing about Bethesda's creation engine is that they are beginning to show its age. That even modders aren't even wanting to play Starfield anymore because of the story being so boring. But the last game that I was disappointed in 2023 was the Callisto Protocol. Now, the Callisto Protocol I was really excited about because the gaming director who created Dead Space, and this was his original concept for Dead Space, having called which he called Rancid Moon, and it takes place in a penal colony in space, and you see a lot of the emphasis in Dead Space in this, but the whole thing, it's just the gameplay is just too repetitive, especially for a survival horror game, which you want to be scared. But they put too much emphasis on jump scares and not enough emphasis on the combat, which I felt done much more, could have been much more than what they had, and so we really hit rock bottom in this year. Hopefully, we'll get better games this this year, and I am expecting hopefully a better showing coming from any of these studios. Like, I am excited of Dragon's Dogma 2, but those are the games that were either good, bad, or disappointing. So let's go to tabletop, and I will tell you the winners and the losers of tabletop. Okay, now the big winner of tabletop this year is Games Workshop. And yeah, I know it makes me sound a little biased, but Games Workshop basically delivered when it came to making their fans happy and giving them the stuff that they have. Even though that they're really known for scummy practices, the the stuff that they introduced for this year delivered, from Warhammer 40K to Age of Sigmar to even the old world, and the and even introducing new games, new ideas. 10th edition was just awesome. I mean, you have new Tyranids, new orcs. You have new and even arcs, the arcs of Omen, and you have the introduction of the Primarch Lionel Johnson, the return of the Primarch Lionel Johnson. You have a more threat, bigger threat with the Tyranids. You have the return of Angron. You have a new orc commando. You have more and more of this that is just so beautiful, and you cannot just keep this up. They're keeping this up with Warhammer the Old World, and they're bringing it back. I mean, while it does seem that they're not going to bring back all the armies, only they're going to with new codex and rules. They are hopefully going to add more depth into the old world, and with Age of Sigmar and Warhammer 40,000, and even you have the spin-off games like Kill Team, Warcry, and other games and that I cannot wait to see. I mean, I just saw the newest Kill Team, and it is both not and it not, it's called Nightmare, and I cannot wait to get my hands on that. I don't care if I have to get it, if it's gonna burn a hole in my wallet. I really need to get Nightmare. Okay, but for the winner, as for the winner was Games Workshop, but the loser is Wizards of the Coast. And I'm sorry to say this, but Wizards of the Coast has fallen so far, and this all happens with the DEI, the DEI stuff. You have sensitivity readers who are saying how barbarians and fat and other things are not too keen is not is not is too sensitive for other readers. But go, going beyond that, the fact that the five they call the Pinkertons on some guy for having Magic the Gathering deck early. It's just so it's shows that they have so much greed instead of Games Workshop that should be having that much greed. But like the way the entire thing, and especially don't get me started about the entire race swapping with Lord of the Rings, because there are this whole thing is just they're gaslighting for inclusivity points, and it didn't work with Rings of Power, and I don't think it's gonna work for me as a Lord of the Rings fan. But I do not play Magic the Gathering. But even though it's great, it is gonna it does not make me want to pick up Magic the Gathering. I would rather pick up Warhammer and play, because even though it's a grimdark world, I rather enjoy it for instead of being people telling me I should be ashamed for liking something because there's not enough a correct criteria of skin colored of certain people with colored skin on it. But that's neither here nor there. But because the whole debacle with Wizards of the Coast caused them to lose a lot of a lot of staff, and I'm really sorry for this people who lost their jobs. I mean, they don't deserve to lose their jobs for other people's mistakes, and this really this really just causes people to lose faith in a product that it should be enjoyed by all people, not just the people who they think should are they the people who they think are on the right side of history. And it's just a and I just roll my eyes at this, and I'm like, it's just a it's just tabletop role playing company. You're not trying to change the world. But yeah, that's all I got with tabletop this year. I'll go into my final thoughts right now. What do I hope for 2024? Well, that's easy. I hope for better comic books, better better tabletop, better content, better video games, better movies, better anime, and I hope to see that where creators are allowed to create instead of like being forced to do this by committee. And I hope that there are some there are some comic book creators out there who show respect to the characters and not just using these certain characters as a soapbox to get their message across. And I hope to see like cer- certain video games be br- be brought to the forefront and and show the respect that they have. Like I am excited about Dragon's Dogma 2, and I hope that it does live up to the hype, it and I hope that these video games will stop going with the whole thing of release it now, fix it later trope. But that's all I got to say. So, what can you expect from me in 2024? Well, hopefully more videos. First, I am going to release pretty soon. I am going to release a Warhammer review novel review of the two first Caiaphas Cain books by Sandy Mitchell, and then I am going to do a special Valentine's Day video based off my favorite comic book couple, which I am going to count down the best comic book couple, the best the best the best Mary Jane and Spider-Man coupling in the multiverse. And then I am going to do an in-depth review on a Spider-Man inspired comic book called Luther Strode, and we'll be going over the strange talents of Luther Strode, the legend of Luther Strode, and the legacy of Luther Strode. And then we're going to do an in-depth review on one of the greatest Spider-Man stories of all time, and that is J.M. DeMatteis DeMatteis Craven's Last Amazing Spider-Man Craven's Last Hunt, and then we're going to continue with Amazing Spider-Man Soul of the Hunter, and we're going to continue this trend of going to Spider-Man's Final Adventure and even the 2022's Spider-Man's Lost Hunt, because it continues from Spider-Man's Final Adventure, and we are going and I want to help have this go into more depth with these great Spider-Man stories. And in the summer, I am going to release a video of going in depth with the entire Zeb Wells run, as his run will end in May with Amazing Spider-Man 50, and hopefully it ends with actually MJ breaking up with Paul, because come on, this guy is an asshole who murdered billions of people, and so they should stop making him look like the good guy. And so everything so but yeah, maybe some more Warhammer stuff, maybe some more unboxing and more Spider-Man reviews. I will probably talk about Jonathan Hickman's new Ultimate Spider-Man as it goes out as it comes out, and this this whole thing about this whole thing of going through and hold maybe even I'll review Madam Web, even though I don't want to. It just looks like another the Marvels, this whole girl boss movie, girl boss superhero movie, and but that hopefully we'll have more we'll have a good year for geek culture, but with an election year, I don't know. But anyways, I'm Bandito Bane, the well-rounded nerd, the Super Spider-Man fan, and the Warhammer noob, saying keep playing and God bless.